The sound of the ocean waves crashing against the shore was a soothing lullaby, wrapping around me as I drifted in and out of sleep. The hotel room was dimly lit, the soft glow of a bedside lamp casting gentle shadows against the walls. I could smell the faint scent of salt and sunscreen lingering in the air, a reminder of the sun-soaked day we had spent at the beach. The bed was luxurious, the sheets cool against my skin, and for a moment I felt truly at peace. But that peace was shattered when I awoke to the absence of my wife. I turned to my side, expecting to see her sleeping peacefully, her hair splayed across the pillow, but the space beside me was empty. A pang of unease shot through me, a flutter of anxiety that twisted in my stomach. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on my chest. I listened intently, the sound of the waves now replaced by the thudding of my heart. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my feet touching the cool tile floor as I tried to gather. My thoughts, where could she be? I glanced at the clock on the nightstand. It was just past 3 in the morning. The idea that she might have gone out without waking me sent a chill down my spine. As I quietly slipped out of bed, the floor creaked beneath my weight. I moved toward the door, my heart racing with each step. Was she outside? My mind raced with possibilities, and I felt a mix of dread and confusion. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling slightly as I turned it slowly, careful not to make a sound. The door opened with a soft click, and I peered into the dimly lit hallway. My heart dropped as I caught sight of her silhouette framed against the moonlight. She was slipping out of our hotel room, her figure moving with an urgency that sent alarm bells ringing in my head. I felt an overwhelming rush of emotions, shock, betrayal, confusion, all crashing over me like the waves outside. Sarah. I called out, my voice barely above a whisper, but it felt like a thunderclap in the silence. She froze, and for a heartbeat, I thought she might turn back. Instead, she hesitated, then continued to slip through the door, oblivious to my presence. A whirlwind of thoughts spiraled through my mind as I stood there. How could she? The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was sneaking out of our hotel room in the dead of night. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a drum. I felt betrayed, my mind racing back to the moments we had shared just days before, the laughter, the intimacy, the plans we had made for our future. In that instant, I was flooded with memories of our wedding day. I remembered the look in her eyes as she walked down the aisle, the way we had danced under the stars, and the promises we had made to each other. Those memories clashed violently with the reality I now faced. The woman I had committed my life to was betraying me, and I felt a deep, hollow ache begin to spread in my chest. I stepped back from the door, my mind reeling. Did I confront her now, or did I let her drown in guilt? The thought of her guilt brought a strange sense of satisfaction, a darkness that surprised me. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the pain she was causing. But at the same time, the idea of losing her was unbearable. I stood frozen in that moment, my heart pounding, caught between love and betrayal. The sound of the ocean faded into the background as I wrestled with my thoughts, the air thick with tension. I could feel the tears prick at the corners of my eyes, a mix of anger and despair threatening to spill over. And then I made a decision. I wouldn't follow her. I would let her go and allow her to drown in the guilt of what she was doing. I would become a spectator in this twisted play, waiting to see how the story unfolded. As I closed the door softly behind me, I leaned against it, my back pressed to the cool wood. The weight of the moment settled heavily on my shoulders, and I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tumult of emotions raging within me. I felt like a ghost, haunting the very room that had once been filled with laughter and love. Now it was filled with betrayal and shadows. I could hear the faint sound of laughter echoing down the hall, the kind that felt foreign to me now. It was the laughter of vacationers, carefree and oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we had built together? My mind raced with questions, each one more painful than the last. I thought of the lifeguard, the image of a sun-kissed, athletic young man flashing in my mind like a cruel joke. Was he the reason she had slipped away? The thought gnawed at me, and I felt a surge of anger rise within me. I wandered back to the bed, the sheets still warm from where she had been lying. I could still smell her scent, sweet, familiar, and now tainted. I ran my fingers over the fabric, remembering the way we had tangled ourselves in them just hours ago. I recalled her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of our plans for the future. The memories felt like a cruel reminder of what I was losing, and I fought back the tears that threatened to spill. In that moment, I decided to replay our relationship in my mind, searching for clues I might have missed. I thought back to the last few months, the subtle changes in her behavior. She had been distant, her laughter less frequent, her smiles not as bright. I had brushed it off as the stress of work, the demands of life creeping in on our happiness. How naive I had been. I felt the anger morphing into guilt, guilt for not noticing the signs, for not being the husband she needed. Flashbacks flooded my mind. Our trip to the mountains last winter, the way we had huddled together by the fireplace, sharing stories and dreams. I remembered how we had talked about starting a family, about building a life together. Those moments felt like they belonged to another life, one that had been shattered in an instant. I picked up my phone, the screen illuminating in the dark room. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen as I thought about texting her. What would I say? Where are you? Or I saw you leaving. I knew those words would only lead to a confrontation that I wasn't ready for. Instead, I opened our photo album, scrolling through images of our happier times. There we were, smiling on a beach, arms wrapped around each other, lost in our own world. The love we shared felt so real then, so unbreakable, but now everything felt tainted. I could see the cracks forming, the shadows lurking behind the smiles. I felt like a fool for having believed so completely in our love. The anger surged again, but this time it was directed inward. How could I have let things get to this point? I closed my eyes, envisioning the lifeguard again. Was he charming? Did he make her laugh in a way I hadn't in months? I could almost picture the sun setting behind them as they shared secrets and dreams, the waves crashing at their feet, a scene painted in betrayal. I felt a deep sense of loss, not just for her fidelity but for the innocence of our love. I had allowed complacency to creep in, and now I was paying the price. Time seemed to slip away as I wrestled with my thoughts. I could hear the distant sounds of the beach, the laughter fading into the night. I felt an urge to confront her, to demand answers, but something held me back. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand the pain she was causing. I wanted her to drown in the guilt of her actions. As the minutes turned into hours, I finally made my decision. I wouldn't confront her tonight. I would wait. I would watch her, study her, and let her feel the consequences of her betrayal. I would become the architect of my own revenge, and in doing so, perhaps I could reclaim the power that had slipped through my fingers. The door creaked open and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that awaited. I would let her return, let her think she could slip back into our lives as if nothing had happened. But I would be ready. I would be waiting. The hours dragged on and I sat on the edge of the bed, lost in my thoughts. I watched the moonlight filter through the curtains, casting a silvery glow across the room. It felt surreal, sitting there in the shadows, waiting for my wife to return from God knows where. My heart was a storm of emotions, betrayal, anger, confusion, and a strange sense of anticipation. Each passing minute felt like an eternity. Finally, I heard the soft click of the door handle. My breath hitched in my throat as I turned to face her. Sarah stepped into the room, her hair slightly disheveled, a hint of guilt hidden behind her eyes. She looked startled to find me awake, and for a moment we simply stared at each other, the silence heavy with unspoken words. "Hey, you're still up," she said, her voice light, almost too casual. I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil inside. "Couldn't sleep. Where were you?" She hesitated, her gaze darting away from mine. "Just went for a walk on the beach. I needed some fresh air," she replied, her voice betraying a hint of nervousness. I studied her, searching for any sign of the truth. At 3 in the morning. I couldn't help but let the edge of accusation slip into my tone. She shifted her weight, her discomfort palpable. "I just needed to clear my head. It's been a long day," and I thought. Her voice trailed off, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to formulate a plausible excuse. "Thought what?" I pressed, my heart racing. I needed to know if she would come clean or if I would have to drag the truth out of her. "Thought I'd take a moment to myself. You know how it is," she said, her voice faltering. I felt a wave of anger wash over me. How could she stand there looking so innocent when I knew the reality? I wanted to scream, to demand she confess, but I held back. Instead, I leaned back against the headboard, crossing my arms, maintaining my calm facade. "Why didn't you wake me?" I asked, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I didn't want to disturb you. You were sleeping so soundly," she replied, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "Disturb me?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "You think I would have cared? I would have preferred to know where you were." She stepped closer, her expression shifting from nervousness to concern. "I'm sorry, I just needed some space. It's been a lot with the vacation and everything. I thought some time alone would help." "Time alone?" I repeated, my heart pounding. "Is that really what you needed? Or did you need time with someone else?" The accusation hung in the air between us, and I watched as her face paled. She opened her mouth to respond but faltered, the truth evident in her silence. I could see the guilt washing over her, the realization that I was onto her. "Who were you with, Sarah?" I pressed, my voice low but firm. I needed her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the pain she was causing me. I I wasn't with anyone," she stammered, her eyes darting away from mine, unable to meet my gaze. "Save it," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "I saw you leave, Sarah. You didn't think I would notice." Her eyes widened and she took a step back, her expression a mix of shock and fear. "You saw me?" "Yes, I did," I replied, my tone steady. "And now here you are trying to play it off like it's nothing." "I was just," she began, but I cut her off. "Just what? Trying to find yourself? Or trying to escape the reality of our marriage?" My words felt like daggers piercing through the facade she had built. She looked down, her shoulders slumping as she realized the truth was out. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Didn't mean for what to happen." I shot back, my heart racing with anger and betrayal. "Didn't mean to betray me. Didn't mean to sneak out in the middle of the night. I thought I could handle it," she admitted, her voice trembling. "It was just a moment of weakness." "It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything," I echoed, feeling the rage boiling within me. "You think that makes it better? You think I can just brush this off like it's nothing?" Her eyes filled with tears and I could see the guilt etched on her face. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I love you." "Do you?" I challenged, my heart aching at the words. "Because it doesn't feel like it right now." Silence enveloped the room as we stood there, the weight of the moment pressing down on us. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I held back. The plan had been set in motion, and I needed to let her drown in her guilt a little longer. "I'll give you time to think about what you've done," I finally said, my voice cold and detached. "But don't think for a second that this is over." As I turned away from her, I could feel the tears welling in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing my pain. I would let her stew in her guilt, let her feel the consequences of her actions. I walked to the balcony, the salty breeze rushing over me as I stared out at the dark ocean. The waves crashed against the shore, a reminder of the storm brewing within me. I would not let her escape unscathed. The game had only just begun. The night stretched on, each moment feeling like an eternity. I stood on the balcony, the cool ocean breeze brushing against my skin, grounding me in the chaos swirling inside. I could hear Sarah moving around the room behind me, her footsteps soft and hesitant, as if she feared disturbing the fragile silence that had enveloped us. My heart was still racing, the adrenaline of confrontation coursing through my veins. I leaned against the railing, staring out at the dark waves crashing against the shore. The rhythmic sound of the ocean was both soothing and maddening, a reminder of the tumultuous emotions roiling within me. I could feel the anger simmering just beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. But I had to stay composed. I had to let her feel the weight of her betrayal. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah stepped out onto the balcony, her presence a stark contrast to the vast darkness surrounding us. I could see the tears glistening in her eyes, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly pushed it aside. She had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. I turned to face her, crossing my arms. "What is there to talk about?" I replied, my tone sharper than I intended. "You've already said enough." "I know I messed up," she said, her voice breaking, "but I need you to understand that it was a mistake, a stupid, reckless mistake. It didn't mean anything to me." Then why did you do it? I challenged, my anger flaring again. What drove you to sneak out in the middle of the night? What was so important that you had to lie to me? She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know, I felt lost. I thought I could find myself again. I thought a little adventure would help me escape the pressure of everything. She admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Venture? I echoed incredulously. Is that what you call it, sneaking out to sleep with a lifeguard? That's your idea of adventure? It was a moment of weakness. She insisted, her eyes finally meeting mine, desperation etched on her face. I didn't think it through. I wasn't thinking about how it would hurt you. No, you weren't, I replied, my voice low but firm. You were too busy thinking about yourself. The silence hung heavy between us, filled with the weight of everything that had been left unsaid. I could see the guilt washing over her, the realization of what she had done settling in. But instead of feeling compassion, I felt a sense of satisfaction. I wanted her to know the depth of her betrayal, to understand the pain she had caused. I want you to think about what you've done, I said finally, my voice steady. I want you to feel it, to live with it, because this isn't something that just goes away. Please, I need you to forgive me, she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I love you. I don't want to lose you. Do you really? I asked, my heart aching at the thought of everything we had built together. Because right now it feels like you love the idea of me, not the reality. I stepped back from the railing, the cool air suddenly feeling stifling. I needed space, time to think. I couldn't let her see how deeply her betrayal had cut me. I need time, I said, my voice cold. I can't just forgive you because you say you love me. Time? How much time? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, I replied, my heart heavy. But you need to face the consequences of your actions. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. With that, I turned away from her, stepping back inside the hotel room. I could feel her eyes on me, the weight of her gaze heavy as I walked toward the bed. I needed to process everything, to formulate a plan. I wanted her to feel the pain of her betrayal, to understand the depth of my hurt. As I sat on the edge of the bed, I could hear her footsteps follow me inside. Please don't shut me out, she said, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I looked up at her, my heart aching at the sight of her tears, but I forced myself to remain resolute. You made your choice, Sarah, I said softly. Now you have to live with it. The guilt in her eyes was palpable, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of regret for the path I was choosing. But I quickly extinguished it. I needed to stay strong. I needed her to understand that actions have consequences, and I would not be her safety net. Tomorrow we'll talk, I said finally, my voice firm. But for tonight, I need you to think about everything. Just know that I won't be the same after this. As I lay back on the bed, the weight of my words hung in the air, a promise and a warning all at once. I would let her drown in her guilt for now, but I would also be preparing for the next steps. I needed to reclaim my power and decide what this betrayal meant for our future. The next morning came slowly, the sunlight streaming through the curtains, illuminating the remnants of the night's turmoil. I woke up alone, the bed still cool where Sarah had slept. I could hear the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore, a reminder of the world outside that felt so far removed from the chaos within me. I had spent the night wrestling with my thoughts, the weight of her betrayal pressing heavily on my chest. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly noon. I had let her sleep, giving her the space she needed to reflect on her choices. But now I felt a sense urgency. I couldn't let this fester any longer. I needed to confront the reality of our situation, to decide what my next move would be. I got out of bed, the cool tile floor sending a shiver up my spine. I could hear the faint sound of the shower running in the bathroom, a mundane noise that felt out of place in light of the storm brewing between us. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. As I stepped into the bathroom, I found her standing under the spray, her back to me. The water glistened on her skin, and for a moment I felt a pang of longing. This was the woman I had loved, the woman I had shared my life with. But the memory of her betrayal quickly extinguished that flicker of desire. Sarah, I called out, my voice steady, we need to talk. She turned off the water and I could see her silhouette through the glass door. Okay, she said softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Just give me a moment. I paced the small bathroom, my mind racing. What would I say? How could I articulate the whirlwind of emotions that had consumed me since discovering her infidelity. I needed to be clear, to lay everything out on the table without letting my emotions cloud my judgment. After a few moments, she stepped out, wrapping a towel around herself. Her hair hung in wet strands around her face, and she looked vulnerable in a way that tugged at my heartstrings. But I couldn't afford to feel sympathy just yet. "Let's sit down," I said, gesturing toward the small table by the window. She nodded, her expression a mix of apprehension and guilt. We took our seats, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. I could see the anxiety etched on her face, and it only fueled my determination. I had to confront this head-on. "Last night you said it was a mistake," I began, my voice steady. "But I need you to understand that it's more than just a mistake. It's a betrayal. You chose to sneak out to be with someone else while we were supposed to be enjoying our vacation together." "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm so sorry I did. Think about the consequences." "Exactly," I said, leaning forward. "You didn't think. You let your desires override the commitment we made to each other. You made a choice, and now you have to live with it." Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt a flicker of guilt for the harshness in my tone, but I pushed it aside. "You need to understand how deeply this affects me. I trusted you, Sarah. I thought we were in this together." "I thought I was lost," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought I could find myself again. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Finding yourself doesn't involve betraying your partner," I shot back, my voice rising slightly. "You took the easy way out. You didn't try to talk to me or work through whatever you were feeling. You chose to run away." "I know," she repeated, her voice breaking. "And I wish I could take it back. I wish I could make it right." "But can you?" I challenged, my heart racing. "Can you really make this right? Or is this a wound that will never heal?" The question hung in the air between us, and I could see the realization dawning on her. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and I was left grappling with the aftermath. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to try. I want to fix this." "Fixing it is going to take more than just words," I replied, my heart aching at the thought of the work that lay ahead. "It's going to take time, effort, and honesty. You need to show me that you're committed to us, that you're willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust." She nodded, her tears spilling over. "I will do anything, I promise." "Anything," I echoed, my heart racing as I considered the implications of her words. "Then you need to cut ties with the lifeguard. No more contact. You need to show me that you're serious about this." Her face fell, and I could see the internal struggle playing out in her eyes. I don't know if I can just cut him out like that. It was a mistake, yes, but it was also a moment of connection." "Connection," I repeated incredulously. "You think that's what this is about? You think that's an excuse for what you did?" "I'm not trying to make excuses," she said, her voice rising defensively. "I just don't want to hurt anyone else in the process." "And what about me?" I shot back, my heart pounding in my chest. "What about the pain you've caused me? You need to prioritize our marriage above all else, and that means making sacrifices." She looked down, her shoulders slumping. "You're right," she said finally, her voice filled with resignation. "I need to do this. I'll cut him out. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm committed." I felt a mix of relief and anxiety wash over me. It was a step in the right direction, but it was only the beginning. "This is going to take time, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "Rebuilding trust doesn't happen overnight." "I understand," she replied, her gaze meeting mine with a newfound determination. "I'm willing to do the work. I don't want to lose you." As we sat in silence, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the pain. Perhaps we could find a way back to each other, but it would require effort from both of us. I needed to allow myself to heal, to process the betrayal, while also being open to the possibility of forgiveness. But as I looked into her eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. The innocence of our love had been tainted, and I would need to tread carefully on this fragile path toward reconciliation. The days that followed felt like a delicate dance, a balancing act between healing and the raw pain of betrayal. Sarah and I navigated the aftermath of her infidelity with cautious steps, each moment laden with unspoken words and lingering doubts. We found ourselves in a strange limbo, where the past loomed large over every interaction, and the future felt uncertain. I had insisted that she cut all ties with the lifeguard, and she did. It was a painful process for her, but she understood the necessity. I watched as she deleted his number from her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she did so. "I'm doing this for us," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that her actions matched her words, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh in my mind. We spent more time together, trying to reconnect in the wake of the upheaval. I took her to dinner at our favorite restaurant, the one we had frequented before the vacation. The ambience was warm, the flickering candlelight casting soft shadows around us. But even in that intimate setting, I felt the tension between us, the elephant in the room that neither of us could ignore. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice soft as she reached across the table to take my hand. I looked down at our intertwined fingers, the warmth of her touch a stark contrast to the coldness that had settled in my heart. "I'm still processing everything," I admitted. "It's hard to just move on from what happened." "I know," she replied, her eyes filled with regret. "I'm so sorry for hurting you. I never wanted to put us in this position. I need to know that you're committed to making this work," I said, my voice steady but firm. "It's going to take time, and I need you to be patient with me." "I will," she promised, her expression earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could find our way back to the love we once shared. But the fear lingered, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. I found myself questioning every interaction, every word spoken, wondering if she was truly committed or if she was simply trying to appease me. As the days turned into weeks, we began to establish a new routine. We attended couples therapy, a step I had insisted on to help us navigate the complicated emotions swirling between us. I found solace in the sessions, where we could openly discuss our feelings under the guidance of a professional. It was a safe space, a place where I could express my hurt without fear of judgment. But even in therapy, I grappled with the lingering doubts. I would often replay the moments leading up to her infidelity, searching for answers that would help me understand why it had happened. I felt like a detective piecing together the clues of our relationship, trying to make sense of the chaos. One evening, as we sat on the couch, I turned to Sarah, my heart heavy. "Do you think we'll ever get back to where we were?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I hope so," she replied, her voice trembling. "I want to believe we can, but it's going to take time and effort from both of us." "I know," I said, my heart aching. "But I can't help but feel that things will never be the same. You broke my trust, and it's hard to see a way forward." "I understand," she said, her voice filled with empathy. "I wish I could take back the pain I caused you. I'm committed to doing the work, to being the partner you deserve." As the weeks turned into months, I began to see glimmers of hope. We laughed together again, shared moments of intimacy that felt genuine. But each time I felt a connection, the memory of her betrayal would creep back in, a reminder of the fragility of our bond. The turning point came one evening after another therapy session. We had talked through some of the hardest topics, and as we walked back to our car, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. "I'm willing to work on this, Sarah," I said, my voice steady, "but I need to know that you're all in. No more secrets, no more lies." "I promise," she replied, her eyes shining with sincerity. "I'm in this for the long haul. I love you, and I want to make this right." In that moment, I felt a shift within me. Maybe we could rebuild our relationship, brick by brick, even if it felt daunting. Trust, once broken, could be mended, but it would take time and patience. I realized that I had to let go of the anger, to stop letting it define our future. As we drove home, I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers once more. The warmth of her touch sent a spark of hope through me. We had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while, I felt a glimmer of belief that we could emerge from this stronger than before. We would navigate the complexities together, learning from the past while forging a new path forward. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to try. After all, love is often forged in the fires of adversity, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next.